"Don't drink that, please," she said, her voice low but shaking. As the cup hovered inches from his mother's lips, the room silent, the wife watching, smiling, while she knew that one more sip would end everything, and no one else in that house had noticed yet. "Don't drink that, please," Naomi said, stepping forward, before she had time to think. As the cup hovered near Margaret Moore's mouth, the room quiet, the fire low, and Laura standing close enough to touch. Everyone froze. The cup shook in Margaret's hand. Not much, just enough to notice. Her eyes moving from Naomi's face to Laura's calm smile, then to her son Daniel, who stood near the window, his phone still in his hand, half listening, half somewhere else. "What did you say?" Laura asked, her voice soft, polite, almost kind. Naomi swallowed, her throat dry, her hands open at her sides. She felt small in that room, small against the thick walls, the high ceiling, the money that lived there. "I said please," Naomi repeated, slower now. "Just don't drink it." Margaret looked confused, tired, her face thin from weeks of feeling unwell. "Naomi, dear, it's just tea," she said, trying to smile, trying to make things easy. Laura let out a short laugh, the kind that sounds friendly but cuts. "You are overreacting," she said, still smiling. "You can go back to the kitchen now." Naomi did not move. Her heart did not jump. It sank, heavy and sure, because this was the moment she had feared, the moment where staying quiet would be easier, safer, and walking away would mean no one would blame her. But she had seen something. "Please," Naomi said again, her voice slower. "I can make something else. Warm milk, plain water, anything." Daniel finally looked up, his brows pulling together. "What is going on?" he asked, tired, already annoyed. Laura turned to him at once, her hand touching his arm. "Nothing," she said. "She is being dramatic." Naomi looked at Margaret, not Laura. She saw the weakness in the older woman's shoulders. The way she leaned back into the chair like standing was too much work. "Mrs. Moore," Naomi said, "just for tonight." The room felt tight, like the air had been locked inside. Margaret hesitated, then slowly lowered the cup, her fingers still around the handle. Laura's smile did not break, but her eyes changed, sharp, warning. "Naomi," she said, "you are crossing a line." Naomi reached forward and gently took the cup, her hands careful, respectful. "I'm sorry," she said, and turned away. She walked fast, not running, but fast enough that no one could stop her. Straight to the kitchen, her legs weak, her breath short, the sound of the cup clinking against the saucer loud in her ears. She poured the tea into the sink, watching the liquid slide away, then stood there for a moment, staring, her hands resting on the counter. She knew this would change everything. Naomi Brooks had worked in this house in New York for 3 years. She cleaned, she cooked, she listened, she noticed things people did not think she noticed. She moved quietly, because quiet people last longer. When Margaret Moore came to live with them, Naomi had been glad. Margaret was gentle, polite, always said thank you, always asked how Naomi's day was. But something had been wrong almost from the start. It had not been loud sickness, no shouting, no sudden fall. It came in pieces. Margaret would push food away after a few bites, saying her stomach felt strange. She would sit by the window and stare at the garden like she had forgotten what she went there to see. Sometimes Naomi would hear a soft sound in the hallway and find her holding the wall, breathing slow, her face pale. Doctors were called. Tests were done. Nothing clear was found. Laura always had an answer. "She is old," Laura would say. "Change is hard. She worries too much." And always, there was the tea. Laura made it herself. Every afternoon, every evening, the same white cup, the same gentle tone. "This helps her settle," she would say. Naomi had tried to tell herself she was imagining things. She was just the help, she should not think too much. But patterns do not lie. Margaret felt worse after the tea. Naomi had started watching closely, counting time, noticing how long it took before Margaret's hands shook, before her words slowed, before she needed to sit down. Tonight, Naomi had stayed near the kitchen, folding towels that did not need folding. Listening. She heard the drawer open, the one Laura never used. She saw the small, clear bottle in Laura's hand. No label, no name, just glass. She saw the drops fall into the cup. That was when fear stopped being a feeling and became a fact. Naomi reached into the drawer now, her fingers shaking. And there it was, the vial, right where Laura had put it. She wrapped it in a cloth and slipped it into her pocket, her hands cold. She leaned against the counter, breathing slow, because panic would not help her now. She knew one thing clearly: no one would believe her without proof. Not Daniel, not the police, not anyone. She was a housekeeper, and Laura was a wife. Upstairs, voices moved, the sound of a chair, the low hum of talking. Naomi wiped her hands, straightened her back, and returned to the sitting room. Daniel was speaking softly to his mother. "Are you all right?" he asked. Margaret nodded. "Just tired." Laura stood near the fireplace, her face smooth, her posture perfect, like nothing had happened. Naomi took her place near the wall, quiet again, but something inside her had changed. She was no longer only watching. That night, long after the house went still, Naomi lay awake in her small room, the vial heavy in her pocket, pressing into her leg like a secret that burned. She thought of all the times she had been ignored, talked over, told to stay in her place. She thought of Margaret's weak smile. By morning, she had made her choice. If the truth needed proof, she would get it, even if it cost her everything. And somewhere down the hall, behind a closed door, Laura Moore slept peacefully, unaware that the house she controlled was already starting to turn against her. Morning came quietly, the kind of morning that looks normal from the outside. Birds, light through the windows, clean floors. But inside the house, something felt wrong, like a lie sitting on the table. Naomi woke before her alarm. The vial was still in her pocket. She touched it once, just to be sure it was real, then stood up and washed her face with cold water. Her eyes looked tired, but clear. Fear was still there, but now it had shape. Downstairs, the house moved as it always did. Plates were set, coffee brewed. Daniel left early for a meeting, distracted, already talking into his phone. Laura came down later, calm, dressed perfectly, her voice light as she greeted the staff. "Good morning," she said, smiling. Naomi answered politely, like always. "Good morning, ma'am." Laura's eyes stayed on Naomi half a second longer than usual, then moved away. Margaret did not come down for breakfast. Naomi carried a tray upstairs. When she entered Margaret's room, she found her sitting on the bed, holding her head in her hands. "I feel weak again," Margaret said softly, embarrassed, like she was sorry for being trouble. Naomi set the tray down and sat beside her. "You didn't drink the tea last night," Naomi said gently. Margaret looked up slowly, confused. "No," she said. "I don't think I did." Naomi nodded. She helped her drink some water, then stayed with her until the shaking eased a little. That was when Naomi knew she was right. The rest of the day felt long. Laura stayed close to Margaret. Too close. She watched every move Naomi made, every glass poured, every cup offered. Naomi did not mention tea. She waited. That evening, when the house quieted again, Naomi made her call. She locked her door, spoke low, careful. "Marcus," she said, "I need your help." Her cousin listened without interrupting. When she finished, there was a pause. "Is someone in danger?" he asked. "Yes," Naomi said. He came the next day in an old van with a toolbox. The front gate opened for him without question. Men like Marcus were invisible here. They worked quickly. The camera was small, hidden inside a charger, placed near the counter where Laura always stood. It faced the drawer, the cups, the space where everything happened. When Marcus left, Naomi stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the charger like it was alive. Now the house was watching. Laura did not know. That afternoon, Naomi stayed near Margaret, folding laundry nearby, pretending to be busy. Margaret seemed better, not strong, but clearer. Laura entered the kitchen slowly, calm as ever. Naomi felt her body tighten. Laura did not look around. She did not need to. She went straight to the drawer. Naomi did not move. She did not breathe. The drawer opened. The vial appeared. Laura tilted it, counted softly. 1, 2, 3. the drops falling into the cup. The camera saw everything. Laura stirred the tea and carried it toward the sitting room. Naomi followed, her legs heavy, her mouth dry. Margaret sat waiting. Daniel was home early, standing nearby. "Tea," Laura said sweetly, placing the cup into Margaret's hands. Margaret looked at Naomi. Naomi shook her head. Small, almost nothing. Margaret hesitated. Laura noticed. "Drink it," Laura said, her voice tight now. Daniel looked up. "Why is she looking at Naomi?" he asked. Naomi stepped forward. "Mr. Moore," she said, "please come with me." Laura turned sharply. "Naomi, stop." Daniel frowned. "What is this?" he asked. Naomi did not argue. She walked to the kitchen, knowing he would follow. He did. She showed him the video. He watched in silence. His face changed slowly. Confusion, disbelief, then pain. She placed the vial on the counter. "I stopped your mother last night," Naomi said, her voice shaking. "I needed you to see it yourself." Laura entered the kitchen. Daniel turned to her. "What did you put in my mother's tea?" he asked quietly. Laura spoke fast, excuses falling over each other. Daniel picked up his phone. "Police," he said. Laura's face went empty. The sirens came later. Margaret sat wrapped in a blanket. Safe. Naomi stood near the wall, shaking now that it was over. Laura was taken away. The house felt different. Not peaceful, but honest. Margaret slowly began to recover. Daniel came to Naomi one evening with a paper in his hand. "I ignored you," he said. "I won't again." He offered her a contract. More pay. Respect. Naomi accepted, not proud, just relieved. She stayed for Margaret. Because sometimes the person who saves a life is the one no one was watching. The house did not return to normal after Laura was taken away. It became quiet in a different way, not the calm kind, but the kind where every sound feels louder because people are thinking too much. Police officers came and went. Questions were asked. Papers were signed. Doors that were once always open stayed closed longer than usual. The staff moved carefully, speaking less, watching Daniel's face before speaking at all. Margaret stayed in her room for several days. Not because she was sick, but because she was tired. Tired in a deep way that sleep does not fix quickly. Naomi stayed with her, not standing over her, not talking too much, just being there. Each morning, Naomi helped Margaret sit up. She brought simple food, toast, soup, water, no tea. Margaret noticed. "I don't miss it," she said one morning, her voice clearer than it had been in weeks. Naomi smiled, small and careful. "Your body is resting," she said. Margaret nodded. "It feels like waking up after a long bad dream." The change came slowly. One day, Margaret finished her breakfast. Another day, she walked the length of the hallway without stopping. On the third day, she laughed at something on the television, a short laugh, surprised, like it had slipped out before she could stop it. Naomi noticed everything, the color returning to Margaret's face, the way her hands stopped shaking when she reached for things, the way her eyes stayed focused, present. Daniel noticed too, and the noticing hurt. He started coming home earlier. He sat with his mother in the evenings, sometimes silent, sometimes asking questions he should have asked long ago. "I should have seen it," he said one night, his voice low. Margaret placed her hand over his. "You trusted the wrong person," she said. "That doesn't make you cruel, just human." Naomi stood nearby, pretending to tidy the shelf, giving them space while still listening. Later that night, Daniel asked Naomi to sit with him at the table. She hesitated. Sitting was not something she was used to doing in that room. "Please," he said. She sat. "I owe you my mother's life," he said, looking straight at her. No phone, no distraction. And I almost didn't listen. Naomi did not answer right away. Words felt heavy. "I didn't want to be brave," she said finally. "I just didn't want her to die." Daniel nodded slowly. "Still, you stood up when no one else did." A few days later, he handed her a contract. It was clear, simple, fair. Her role was written plainly. Her pay was more than she had ever earned. "I want you to stay," Daniel said. Not as staff only, but as my mother's companion, someone she trusts. Naomi read the paper twice. Her hands shook. Not from fear this time, but from the weight of being seen. I will, she said. Margaret smiled when she heard. I feel safer already, she said. The house changed shape around them. Laura's things were packed away by others. Her voice was gone. The kitchen drawer stayed closed. Sometimes Naomi still looked at it, remembering how close everything had come to ending. At night, she slept better. The vial was gone, turned over to the police. No longer a secret burning against her skin. Margaret grew stronger each week. She went back to the garden. She sewed again. She talked about plans, small ones, visiting friends, donating clothes, teaching a class at the community center. One afternoon, she stopped by the window and looked at Naomi. You saved me, she said simply. Naomi shook her head. I only stopped something bad, she said. Margaret reached for her hand. That is saving, she replied. Daniel watched them from the doorway, quiet, thoughtful. Power had not protected his family. Money had not warned him. Attention had. Weeks passed. The house felt lighter. Not happy all the time, but honest. Grief and relief lived together, and that was enough. One evening, as Naomi cleaned the kitchen, she paused by the counter. The charger was gone now. The space looked normal again. She thought of the moment she almost stayed quiet, almost stepped back, almost chose safety over truth. She was glad she hadn't, because sometimes the most dangerous thing is silence, and sometimes the smallest voice in the room is the one that must speak first. Naomi turned off the light and went upstairs, where Margaret waited, alive, present, and no longer fading. And in that quiet New York house, a life continued. Because one person had paid attention when it mattered most. Sometimes, the person who saves a life is not the loudest voice in the room. It is the one who notices the small things. The one who refuses to look away, even when staying quiet would be safer. Naomi was not rich. She was not powerful. She had no title that demanded respect. Yet she chose truth over fear. And because of that choice, a mother lived, and a family was forced to face the truth. This story reminds us that courage does not always look big. Sometimes it looks like a quiet warning, a steady hand, and the strength to speak when no one expects you to. If this story touched you, please subscribe for more emotional and suspenseful stories like this, and comment below where you are watching from. Your voice matters here. Before you go, tell me this. Question 1. Would you have spoken up if you were in Naomi's place, knowing you could lose everything? Question 2. Do you think people often ignore the truth when it comes from someone they see as unimportant? Question 3. Have you ever noticed something dangerous and struggled with whether to speak or stay silent?